Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on a Saturday morning. Very aware of how precious every weekend morning is. So a special thank you to all of you for taking time out and keeping me company as I refresh my memory about the white paper that we presented as part of our NCC journey. I work with a company called Tata Elxsi. I'm part of the learning and development team. And I head a space called life skills. And one of the aspects of life skills would be the leadership development. And I think also that, I think more important would be the team development in terms of performance and productivity. So when we, as part of our NCC journey, we're required to do a deep dive into a space which would connect to our workspace and then help us to understand when, where, and how coaching can be applied. It was actually quite easy for me to come up with the topic of defense mechanisms. And having done a lot of team spaces, one thing that has always struck me as very strongly is that when a manager sends a team for training and coaching, oftentimes they think they are about training and coaching. And when in fact, if you look at team protocol, team culture, team collaboration, team success, everything stems from the manager. So the focus of my topic, defense mechanism, was more towards the managers and how are they able to work on three very important aspects of their work. One is transparency, second is trust, and the third is decision-making. So these are three areas that I have looked at, and I will admit that my entire presentation has a very strong overtone of working in an IT industry. So a lot of my examples will be from there. Having said that, I would love it if we could pause between concepts, and if all of you could share your thoughts, your doubts, and how you would like to present coaching in your areas or your spaces. So here there are three examples. And by the way, every example on this slide is literally verbatim and from real life. Something that I have encountered in my combination of facilitation and coaching. So you have a manager who forgets to mail the team regarding a change in schedule of a customer visit. Instead of apologizing, he rationalizes that the team anyway does not read his mails. So what are they complaining about that they didn't know that there was a customer visit? Another example is a woman stands up her teammate. That means she arrives late for a very important meeting. And this particular woman employee, she had the PowerPoint access. And so her colleague who was supposed to present ended up standing for almost 20 minutes in front of the customer without a PowerPoint. And when this woman was quizzed, she said, "Oh, that's okay. Whenever we go for lunch, she's always late." We have campus hires, and a fresher, he rationalizes for not completing the task on time, saying he was not given clear instructions. Can any of you come up with any personal or professional examples that kind of align to these three examples? Anything that you would like to share? Hi, Rajesh. Thank you for joining.
Good morning.
Sushmita, any thoughts? Any example that comes to your mind?
I have heard the third one most often, so
I know.
yeah, a lot of times, we hear saying not having proper instructions, and also sometimes not having the right information. Also, it's like, and they don't ask, but yeah, sometimes they say like, I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know. I feel stuck. Yeah.
I think one thing everybody might kind of have heard or felt themselves is I'm unable to diet because I don't have time, or I'm unable to exercise because I don't have time.
That's right.
I think that is something we all resonate with. And even small things like having to buy something for the home, I Swiggy it and I blink it because I don't have time. This struck me as an example because I have a daughter, and she very strongly objects to anything being Swiggied or blinked it if it's raining. So it's just a thought process that she has, and her rationale is that why are you troubling people for something you should have planned and done before yourself? And I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I come home by 8. When would I do all this? And weekends are chock-a-block. So I'm kind of explaining literally my inaction or counteraction based on a rationale that I have, which makes it so natural not to do something or to do something. And this is something that protects us from feeling guilty. It protects us from feeling incompetent. And this, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be the defense mechanism called rationalization. We rationalize in the hope that we are able to convince ourselves we are not incompetent. Anybody on board with me?
Yeah, very true.
Anushli, I will take this as, we say maunam sammadam, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. So I'm being the voice of the system. Take it like that.
yeah.
Yes, we resonate.
Okay, so here's another set of examples for all of you to think about. You really dislike your manager at work, who treats you just like they treat everyone else. There is no partiality as is. But instead of admitting your dislike for that person, you go around telling all the people around you, there's something weird, that manager, he doesn't like me. And every time we have a feedback session or an appraisal session, he's just trying to sabotage my career. Another example would be a manager in a new role. He's still grappling with the process, and then he constantly criticizes his team for not following the process. Here I have an interesting example for all of you. There was a person who was newly hired into the company, and he was given a team. And finally, the team was told that this man they hired is a rock star, and in his previous company he brought in a lot of business, and he was told that this is a fantastic team, one of the highest performing teams in that space. Within 3 months, everything fell apart. The manager started criticizing the team and saying that you guys don't know how to do anything on your own, and the team started saying that the manager doesn't know how to manage. He just gives instructions, throws orders, and walks off. And the team members were like, he doesn't know how to get performance out of us. And the manager was like, the team doesn't know how to perform. And the one who became Chucky piece in the middle, who got stuck in the middle, was the HR. Another example is you think that your manager is extremely unreasonable, lacks empathy. Why? Because the manager pulled you up for going on leave without prior intimation. So what's a common thread that you see in this? Hi, Ramya. Thank you for turning on the video. So nice to see you. So what do you think is a common thread here?
Blame.
Can you add some more conditions to the blame?
I think somewhere when you feel shamed or embarrassed or you're being put down, you immediately, end up blaming or identifying things about the other person that can. So it's a you tell about me and I will do it for you type. Not
Yeah,
directly, but yes,
I get
in
you.
a way. This, yeah.
But could you see a common thread that triggers that guilt or shame?
And also justification, right? I think that is something that I'm seeing common, where we're justifying our own actions. Like the manager here, like, anyways, they're not going to read, so it's okay, right? It's a justification, blaming that, okay, team
No.
is,
The one on the left, the rationalization dabba is different.
okay. You're talking about the right one?
Yeah, I'm talking about the right one.
Yeah.
So what Kulshum mentioned is, and Anushri also said, like, you are being put down and you will teach the other person a lesson, so you're giving it back. Kulshum used two very deep words. One was shame and one was guilt. Kulshum, it was you, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Maya.
Yeah. So she used the word guilt and shame. My question here is, what do you see on the examples on the right side, which would have been a trigger for the guilt and shame?
I think one-on-one is a different way. Here it seems more like it's happening in front of others. So when it's done publicly, or so therefore, I think the shame comes into picture.
Okay, now I would like to request all of you to think like coaches. Start with the internal space first, rather than the external situations.
I see some insecurity actually, because there's one thing, right? It's about what they're expecting, and when that need is not met, and you feel inadequate, but put the blame on the others because you're not willing to accept, yeah, this is maybe something that has got to do with me.
Okay.
Because
again, you're externalizing. You started with internal insecurity, but you externalized it. So have a look at the last one.
Yeah,
Look
he
at
lacks empathy.
he lacks empathy. Baki padho na. Read the rest of it. When you went on leave without prior intimation.
Or intimation.
All right.
Yeah, so
if you look
not
at the top
informed.
one, if you look at the, sorry, Sushmita, you were saying?
Yeah, it's like, sorry, the need to be informed.
Who's need to be informed?
Manager, he is expecting that I'm a manager and oh, sorry. No. I think I have not understood. No.
You just
Yeah,
reversed it.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, sorry. Let me stop
So
there. Yeah.
basically, if Ramya went on leave and she didn't inform her manager, and then when she comes back, her manager is like, this is unacceptable. And Ramya is like, dude, I had to go to the hospital. And that is priority for me. And then she goes around telling people that the manager is not empathetic. Somewhere down the line, she forgets that she forgot to inform.
Yeah.
Right? So oftentimes, when we do something wrong, or when we do something inappropriate, or when we do something which actually lets down somebody else, we project that on the other person and blame the other person for it.
Yeah.
If you look at the second bullet point also, I am new in the role. I am not clear with the process. But when there's an escalation, I criticize the team for not following the process. Why? Because they were in this project longer than me. They should have known the process. So whatever is the lack in me, I project it on other people. Can you give me a personal example here?
I think relationship fights are very good example.
Yeah. I think how many of you would say resonate with a mother-daughter scenario, or a father-child scenario?
Maya, I feel parents and children also is the same scenario, because parents superimpose their insecurities.
Yeah, absolutely. Very true, Soumya. So I think parent-child spaces are very full of such instances where someone projects their lack on the other person. So we have, and please remember, all these actions, with practice become subconscious, but they always start with consciousness. And by the time our coaches reach us, it has become a narrative that is so part of their life that they have convinced themselves ki yahi sach hai, this is the truth.
And also it's a conscious effort to protect themselves, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, a heightened, nuanced version of amygdala hijack. Amygdala hijack just has freeze, flee, and, fright. But this is like a heightened, nuanced end of amygdala hijack. And the difference is amygdala is very visceral. It's very animalistic. It is innate in us. But these rationalizations and projections are something that we have learned over a period of time. It has protected us and served a purpose over a period of time. And very often what happens is we have reached a juncture in life when they're not really helping us anymore. And that is when we come in front of a coach and the coach shows the mirror and says, okay, how would you like to reframe this? Right? Now I'd like to show you some more examples. This, I think, I'm going to be very gender specific, but the first one I would put it on men, and the second one I'd put it on women if I go the stereotype way. So, have you ever endured a stressful day at work and then on the way home you lose your temper on faulty traffic signals? Which idiot made a traffic signal that lasts 90 seconds at Martahali? Who does it? If anyone is from Bangalore, you will resonate with me. Silkboard Junction. Why would you have a traffic signal for 90 seconds? How many of you come across a very slow moving traffic and you say, there must be a policeman there blocking the traffic? All right. I would request, let me see who. Somebody has lots of human beings behind them talking. If you could kindly mute yourself. Rajesh is thinking. Yes, Rajesh, tell me.
No, I'm just relating it to Bombay traffic areas from Bangalore.
Same, sama. And many times, we have gone on the same route and we have sat through a traffic signal of 90 seconds and we have not really worried or thought about it because we were on a call or, we were perhaps in a good mood or we were otherwise occupied. But on a day when we've had everything going wrong for us, then something as trivial as a traffic signal of 90 seconds really triggers us. Similarly, a woman who's frustrated because her boss made her work late again, and she yells at her son for asking what's for dinner. A manager who's frustrated with the customer blames his team for their lack of professionalism. Okay, now this looks very suspiciously like projection, but it isn't. This is like, can you spot the difference? What is different in this set as compared to the second set?
So Maya, I feel the trigger is different in both, right?
Yeah.
The trigger is different and here the trigger is different. So
triggers are definitely different. And if you see the emotion before and after the trigger is still same, right? You're buggered with your boss or you're buggered with your day at work or you're frustrated with the customer. The same emotion is coming after the trigger also. And this is when we displace our anger, we displace our frustration, we displace our helplessness on someone else or something else. In the second one, there's an accusation that happens. Whereas in the third one, it's a displacement of our emotion. We cannot, usually what happens is we are unable to show that emotion and we feel frustrated. So we show that emotion on someone else, which is displacement. Now I'm going to start working on, tightrope, because the next set I'm going to show you also seems very similar to displacement. How many of you join a Zumba class to calm down? How many of you go for running to calm down? Yeah. Sushmita, let our knees become all right, then we both will go for running. Right. The second one is very classic. You don't trust people because they don't have your degree of values in terms of perfectionism, in terms of punctuality, in terms of focus on outcomes. And so you decide, and please note, in the second one, in second bullet point, you're not even blaming your team. You just take on most of the work and then crib that you're overworked. How many of you are familiar with people who have a maid who washes the vessels and then you sit and wash all the vessels because the maid hasn't washed it properly?
I know many friends of mine. Or they just stand behind and see what she's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And then point out, yahan pe, wahan pe, and things like that. But yes, and the last one is very true of me, by the way. I'm a living example. Anushri knows this. Instead of working on improving my own health and fitness, I am keeping myself so busy that I can safely declare that I don't have time. So it does lean towards rationalization because I'm explaining it to myself. But this is known as sublimation. I have a lot of negative emotion, but I look for safe ways to dissipate it. Right? I have frustration, I have helplessness, I have anger, I have irritation. But instead of pointing fingers like projection, or instead of passing on that emotion to someone else, what I do is I find safe outlets for it. I go do pottery, I go running, I do mindful coloring, something like that. So you are looking at safe outlets for your emotions. And then you have the misconception that you have handled your emotion.
Isn't that toxic positivity that we're talking about?
Oh yeah, that is why I'm not a very Sri Ravi Shankar person. Positive thinking does not resolve the root of the issue. It is just a coping mechanism. Now the thing is, one fine morning, if you look at all these four, and by the way, there are tens of defense mechanisms, but for the purpose of my white paper, I had picked up these four because, and like I said, each of these examples are all real examples, real situations that I have picked up. So for me, I felt at workplace, rationalization, projection, displacement, and sublimation happens very, very often. And these are the aspects that come to us for coaching. Now, when I did the survey, in fact, if anyone is interested in the survey for self-help, you're welcome to let me know. I had posted this on Abhyudaya community, but I'll post it once again if you like. So you can do the self-assessment yourself and kind of think about our session. I'll share the PowerPoint too. From a perspective of a defense mechanism, I have put these photographs so that it's easier for you to kind of remember. I love the first one. I think Anushli will enjoy this. I hate you. What if you're just projecting? Maybe I remind you of the things you dislike in yourself, and then the person says, I hate you even more. Right? So that is projection. Rationalization is I'm not hiding from reality. I'm not running away from reality. I will face reality as soon as it becomes as beautiful as I want it to be. It's a very poignant space. Displacement, I think the images are very clear. The boss shouts at the man, he goes home and shouts at his kids. And then sublimation is like what I told you. You look for safe outlets for your emotions, and then you feel that you have coped with it very well. It also gives you a space. The moment you think that you have become calm, we have the feeling that we have dealt with a negative aspect. And so that is sublimation. And many times it is like stacking things under the carpet. And like Anushli mentioned, it'll reach a point where it'll all burst. Now, I would like to just take you through some of the interesting observations that I had during the survey analysis. A defense mechanism could be a thought, a feeling, or a behavior. Very similar to amygdala hijack, where we talk about freezing, flying or fleeing, and fighting. The pattern is often comforting and triggers a sense of safety and feels very realistic. This is something that we need to keep in mind as coaches before we instinctively jump in and become judgmental about it. We need to understand that it is a protective mechanism. It is being used by our coachee to protect themselves. So it is not enough that you look for just problems that are triggering it, but we also need to look at how can we reframe or replace the protection aspect with something that's more functional and more supportive. So you usually have a trigger, thought, feeling, behavior. Just highlighting the fact here that thought precedes feeling. Sometimes feelings are so instinctive and so strong that there is an understanding that I felt I was blinded by anger. But a microsecond before you got blinded, you were thinking, what the hell? Why me? So there's this micro fraction of a second before a feeling, which is a thought, which comes before the feeling. And then the feeling results in behavior. So in NLP, we often say that if you want to break this pattern, at which point will you break it? Will you break it at the trigger, thought, feeling, or behavior part? That you need to analyze your coachee's strength and weakness. Where are they strongest? Where are they weakest? And where would you feel that the reframe is most impactful? Is it at the thought level? Is it at the feeling level? It is at behavior level. Usually, and I'm not generalizing, but even in my own coaching journey, I realized like if we are at an ACC level, we will look at resolving behavior. If we are at PCC level, we will look at resolving feelings. What else can you feel at this juncture? How else can you feel? What kind of feeling will help you have a resourceful behavior? If you move through your PCC, you will reach the thought part, because the thought is the one that is triggering the feeling. How many of us find this interesting? Yeah. I will take that as a yes.
It's Maya, it's also about this whole thing come from the journey from what to who, isn't it? When you're talking about what, then you're talking about the behavior essentially. When you're saying from what to who, then you're getting from moving to feeling and thought.
Absolutely. And so now you can automatically see which competencies are met. So while we are looking at our coaching space, when we break it down like this, it becomes very simple to see which competencies are being met. When you have maintains presence, you have evokes awareness. If you look at the sub-competencies, you realize how that maintains presence and evokes awareness does a tango. And if you play it right, you will actually move from behavior to feeling to thought. And therefore, if you tell behavior, if you tell people how to, or if you guide people towards changing behavior, it's borderline mentoring or counseling. And since they are not us, how strongly will the behavior change and remain sustained as a changed behavior is debatable. That is why, okay, so this is a trigger. How differently would you like to think in that situation? And then ask what will support or sabotage you for changing your thought process. That becomes a stronger impetus for change. At workplace, defense mechanisms, they often dictate behavior in the leads and managers, and they think that they are guiding people. They think that they are explaining things to people, but actually they are not. They happen to come across as very inflexible, and they happen to come across as very skewed in their decision making. And surprisingly, they tend to come across as I, me, myself. And they always seem to talk about a team that just does not understand them. And having said that, for the manager, the confusion is very real. I cannot trust anybody. When he says I cannot trust anybody, it's as if because of other people, he is not able to trust. Why are others not transparent with me? I am so transparent with them. Why are they not transparent with me? Why are my decisions not being executed? Why do people ghost me? These are some of the realizations from my previous slide, where I was looking at understanding what are the defense mechanisms that are common at workplace. And coming back to the survey, I felt that when you come to the survey,
Maya, just a
yes.
quick thought in
Ah.
relevance to this feeling, behavior, thought that you mentioned. I'm just wondering that when you go beyond the PCC level, it is about who is that behind this thought, right?
Very correct. It's like, Anushri, you know, there's this question we ask, who are you being?
Yes.
Right? Oh, and by the way, you know that brilliant triangle that you showcased in one of the mentor coaching sessions, the Karpman triangle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The victim,
Yeah.
savior,
Victim, rescuer. What was the third one? Victim, rescuer,
savior,
Prosecutor.
yeah, prosecutor.
prosecutor.
Yes, that is such a brilliant triangle. Rajesh, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, drama triangle, right?
Drama
Yeah, the drama
triangle.
triangle. Yes.
Yeah.
That comes up beautifully in these places. Very right, Anushli.
You know, I want to share, Maya, something about trust. You know, my default setting is to trust people, right?
Okay.
And because somewhere my defense mechanism is if I don't trust, I'm not being a good human being, and people are nice. So I'd like to believe that people are nice and they won't take advantage of you. Now, having gone through a situation recently where my driver took away a lot of my money and then I disappeared and he disappeared and stuff. Now it's become very fragile. So my defense mechanism is I have to think twice before giving money to people because people can be cheats and they can be. And he was a very nice guy and he was doing a lot of good things for the family. And you know, so this whole trust being fragile is what triggered this point about how that has become two different kinds of defense mechanisms. I was justifying it by saying that, people are, I don't want to be hurt and I don't want to be seen as not a nice human being by not trusting people. Suddenly now I'm thinking that, you can't trust blindly.
Yeah,
So,
true. In fact, Rajesh, there are a lot of, quotes, proverbs from childhood that kind of validate our approach. All right. So like when you say you said like, if I don't trust people, then I'm not being good. It also stems from the fact that we often hear like our grandparents saying, हर इंसान में कुछ अच्छा ही होता है.
exactly.
कोई पैदा नहीं होता खराब. Like, they become bad. Nobody is born bad. So a lot of these kind of proverbs and quotes that we hear from our childhood also validates the kind of approach we have or the kind of defense mechanism we use. It's not just having a defense mechanism that protects us, but it is also validating it with narrative from childhood. In fact, one thing, Rajesh, that I realized was that I often found, and this is just an observation I'm sharing, I often found that in the coaching process, I am actually creating a space where people realize life is not black and white and it's gray. So for example, you trust with your eyes open, right? Or you create pockets of trust. What are the things you will trust? Now, for example, if I delegate tasks to you, I may be able to trust you to follow the process, but I may not be able to trust you to raise a flag when things go downhill. But that doesn't mean I cannot trust you completely. So often I have found that I encourage people to look for pockets of trust.
Nice.
Right? So like I say, the gray zone rather than the black and white zone.
Yeah.
Yes, Ramya, tell me. Thank you, Rajesh, for bringing that up.
Thanks.
Just a personal thing on trust that I would like to share, Maya, here. So I was playing with my daughter. She's 5 years old, and then she was jumping from the steps. She was jumping from the first step, second step, and then I was catching her from every step. And then she reached the fifth step, and then she said, "Amma, now you can't catch me." So she trusted me until the fourth step, and then the fifth step was like the boundary for me.
Wow. Okay.
So something really struck me at that point, that trust is good, but trust also has boundaries.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, so trust also comes with a boundary wherein she knew herself that until the fourth step, I'm safe, my amma will catch me. But then the fifth step is somewhere that she can't. So, so I think it relates more to everything in life. So trust also comes with a boundary, and anything too much inside the boundary and too much outside the boundary is also a risk. So that level has to be maintained.
Absolutely. I agree with you so much. And as a parent, I really resonate with what you said just now, Ramya. I also felt that I feel that I derive comfort from reframing the situation. Sometimes, I don't know how many of us are parents here, but the first time the child went to play school or nursery and cried their hearts out, and we felt so valued. Okay. And now the kids are like, back off, like we don't want you there. And we are like, oh my God, my child doesn't need me anymore. One way that I went around this was, when I am not there to hold, guide, and stop my child from falling, can I be there as a backup when the child does fall and gets up? Right. So that's the reframing I was telling Rajesh about. Like, there is a gray zone, and we can reframe it to make ourselves still feel relevant in the relationship. And this is very true, because the way that children are growing today is way faster than how we grew up. We still turn to our parents, I think, for a lot of things. Like, I'm 57, so yeah. So, but yes, but thank you so much for sharing. Trust has boundaries. I think that's my takeaway. Thank you. And on that note, the survey brought out some things which was quite interesting, that men and women lean towards rationalization more towards higher authorities and team members, or the peer. When I say peer and team, I meant at the same level as them, or people who are higher than them. People below them, they usually tend to go into either projection or sublimation. So this is something that I kind of felt popped up in the survey responses. Between men and women, women tend to go for sublimation more than men. That means, you're really buggered with somebody, you bang the pots and pans in the kitchen. Pardon me for very stereotypical examples here, but it's the easiest that comes to mind. So, you bang things, you throw things, you, mutter under your breath. That's your sublimation happening. And both men and women, they rationalize, and the purpose of rationalization is they want to be liked. Interestingly, respect didn't figure. They want to be liked. See, logically, if you ask people, when you ask people, logically, if you ask them, how many of you want to be liked? Everyone raises a hand. How many of you want to be respected? They realize it's a trick question. And then when you ask, do you want to be liked or respected? Everyone logically, cognitively knows respect has greater currency. But it is that human need to be liked. And that is where the defense mechanisms come in. No, and that is why defense mechanisms become so powerful for us, because it's not just about protecting, it's also about branding, how we come across to others. Yes, Biswajit, tell me.
Sorry, I wanted to say something on that trust thing.
Sure.
So I think we have moved on, so I thought I'll lower my hand. But what I have discovered throughout my corporate journey as well as my personal endeavor is the trust also is about the competency and skill of other person that you trusted. Okay, you touched upon it. You have given something to someone. You believe that you trust that he will follow the process, but not the outcome, maybe. But say, so here are two things. So I trust my driver to drive me safely, and I trust my wife to keep my bank password safe. Okay, so I will share my password with my wife, but I will not trust her to drive me safely.
That's what it's a pockets of trust. Like, you
Yeah.
don't blindly trust, unconditionally trust. You trust with some rationalization there. Why do I trust this person? It's because of this.
Yeah.
Very true.
So,
Very true.
But if we add that up to what Rakesh said is Rakesh or Rajesh, I'm so
Rajesh.
sorry. Yeah, Rajesh. So is like if I like we have a watchman, he keeps on asking for money, but he returns it on the day he or 2 or 3 days. Yes. So I have trust in him. Sometimes he didn't return, but that does not stop me from showing this generosity to somebody because somebody has done this to me. Okay, so that is where the entire thing, the system collapses. Okay, so that's why, like, I find it difficult at times to say no to people, and that makes me in a poor light. But the entire system of generosity or social behavior crumbles when you apply one experience to another, because these two experiences totally different. So that is what I was just thinking. I mean, we have talked on.
In fact, while you were giving the example, I was just thinking, our values, our beliefs, our defense mechanism, it's like a mesh, that supports and guides what we believe is our character. Right. We have values, we have beliefs, and we have these defense mechanisms, and put together, they create our character. Like Rajesh was saying, I would like to be known as a good human being. And one of the ways I manifest is I trust people. And please note, the caveat is, his is unconditional. I trust people without conditions. And then I get beaten up for it. Whereas in your case, you're rationalizing. Okay, I trust the person because of this. In fact, Biswajit, when you were telling me about that those two examples, I was thinking, when I grew up, my mother told me, always be polite and kind and helpful to everyone. Now, when my child was growing up, I repeated this, the Sikh ko English mein kya bolte hain? The learning that you should be kind, you should be polite, you should be helpful. But by the time she reached 10th grade, I added a caveat, don't get taken for a ride. So automatically, I plugged in a defense mechanism there. So you should be kind, you should be helpful, you should be polite, but keep your eyes open and don't get taken for a ride.
So true. Yeah.
It's a protective device that we plug in, hoping that our kids will survive a planet which we are passing on to them. But yes, thank you so much for those examples.
Thank you.
Helps bring clarity. And along with so I would admit the limitations of the survey, because we had just had about 25 people responding. I think in Abhyudaya, only 4 people responded. Conditional to that, these were the realizations that men and women lean towards rationalization, and they lean towards rationalization as a way of being well liked, apart from, of course, protecting themselves or validating their non-action. Also, please note, a lot of people use rationalization in their mind to turn an incompetence into a situational space. It's not that I'm incompetent, but because of the situation and people around, I wasn't able to do it. And that's also a place where rationalization comes in. And of course, I don't think I was surprised when I saw that women tend to go for sublimation more than men. Now, on the right side, what you see, you will find it, that comes. So the question was, if you were being offered a coaching session to support you in reframing this defense mechanism for a more productive behavioral response, what would you want to focus on first? Would you want to become self-aware? Would you want to take responsibility? Or would you like to break the pattern? This is where the answers become interesting. You know, initially, this was one place where I really, really wanted to do a deep dive. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. I think all of us were stuck like that. We didn't get too many responses, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't have
also
sufficient
Maya,
numbers.
Yeah. And also, Maya, I think sometimes it really challenges people to answer these questions that we posted in our survey. So that resistance also could be the reason what stopped them from responding to our surveys.
I agree. There were 2 people who told me, are there any other defense mechanisms? Because I don't identify with any 4. So that was also an interesting space where people actually said that they don't, resonate with any of the 4 defense mechanisms. Are there any more? But yes, the fact that, you want to be self-aware, but the self-aware doesn't lead to taking responsibility. And all of us, our 8th competency is accountability. How many of the coaches are realizing the challenge here? They want to be self-aware, they want to break the pattern, but taking responsibility is very low on the scale. So as a coach, recognizing and realizing and understanding why competency 8 is so important. And that you cannot do a rafta work. Like you cannot just, Acha, what are you going to do after a conversation? Oh, okay, fine. You feel confident about it? Great, go ahead. Can't close that growth, the competency 8 in 2 minutes. And one of the reasons I would feel for myself is this realization that, do people want to be self-aware? Yes, it's good to know. Please note, it is good to know. Do they want to break patterns? You will see the resistance more in the, out of the 25 people, 24 people that I looked at, 3 of the men said they would like to break the pattern. But then again, are you willing to take the responsibility, or do you want to change? Do you want the world to change so that you can be good? So from a coach perspective, I found this very thought-provoking. What comes up for all of you?
Sometimes I feel, Maya, it could also be because of the trauma that they're going through, which they themselves have not identified, which is coming on their way in taking that responsibility, but keep blaming the outside world.
Very true. At the end, Anushri, like I said, defense mechanisms are meant to protect us. But when it becomes counterproductive, do we know how to come up with, and I always believe when you are looking at removing something that's so pivotal to your life, you cannot just remove it, you need to replace it. And many people often look at removing without replacing, which leaves a vacuum. Most simple example I can think of is khana, food. You're not supposed to eat something, but you don't replace it with something that's as yum, but more healthy. And if you go on a starvation mode, then you're definitely not going to maintain the diet. Same with exercise. I cannot do Surya Namaskar. Okay, fine, then I'm not going to stretch and strengthen also. That aspect, like, when you want to replace something, when you want to remove something, look at replacing it.
Also, Maya, I feel the word responsibility is also overwhelming for people.
Oh yeah, tell me, Soumya. Anushli has coached me on that word responsibility. Yes, it is something that and I also would like to bring up a point here, Soumya, like the elder sister or elder child syndrome. That's like so real. And even at the age of 57, I have been unable to give up that role of being the elder sister or being the responsible child or being the, like they say, tum badi ho, you're the elder one. And it's almost as if because you're the elder one, you have taken you become the custodian of all the practical, sensible, rational behavior. Yeah, absolutely, Soumya. I agree with you on that.
But so Maya, this is my take. Sorry, somebody wanted to
Sure.
speak. Okay, so this is my take. I think. I mean, I have been reprimanded for this in one of the sessions. Like,
Okay.
So becoming self-aware and breaking the pattern
Ah.
are basically disguising your incompetence. Okay, so this is like if you see the breaking the pattern is how to be mindful, how to pause and rephrase the response. You are just temporarily you are just handling the situation. Okay, you wanted to say the same thing, but you just want to rephrase. I could be completely wrong, but taking responsibility is where others see your vulnerable side. Okay, so I remember attending this session with one of the business schools, and where the question was posed, and I think so I was handling a team of 300 plus people, and they could see me vulnerable at times. Like I don't have the solution and I'm working it out with them. And that is when they relate to me. Because there is always a vulnerable side to them, to every one of us. Okay. But if a leader tries to hide his vulnerability through big talks and confidence and all those things, that's when the followers or the managers, they cannot relate to him. He thinks he is a superhuman being. Okay, so when we take responsibility, you don't have to revisit this problem again. But if you are trying to break the pattern and become self-aware or this, then the problem is not resolved.
Very true. True.
Yeah, but when you take this, it may it may make you vulnerable, and you may become a little uh, uh, again vulnerable over there. But it solves the problem forever. Okay, now it depends on us. Do we really? So I was reprimanded in the sense, there were other leaders from other organizations who were saying, no, a leader should not show his vulnerability side.
Yeah,
That is not the way the leadership works. But I still believe that's the best way to do it.
While I I agree with you. A lot of these people who come with, shouldn't show your vulnerability are the kind of people who are basing it on the EQ of their team members. If you are fortunate to have a team that possesses an EQ that actually gives you space to be vulnerable and yet feel supported rather than being finger pointed at, I think that is a blessing in today's world. If you have a team like that, right? But yeah, it's a very useful observation.
Who creates that ecosystem? It's a leader, right?
वो तो है. That I completely second. Yes, leaders create that space.
Yeah.
True.
Thank you. I think this is.
Thank you so much.
This is very profound.
I wanted to share that on the responsibility or the breaking pattern why we or maybe struggle with is not probably realizing the fact or maybe not having the awareness about, is that the only option we have?
Oh, well said.
Right? Many times we end up taking responsibility where, it's all about how badly we really want it or we need it rather. The day we realize that this is the only option and this bad I need it, and that is when we step into action.
This triggers a thought in me, Sushmita, and I'd like everyone to ponder on it. We have all been some way or the other brought up, you want to do it, so do it and show me. Whereas we are bringing up our children, you want it, I'll get it for you. So I have a lot of campus hires who are in that space of the most overused word today with reference to freshers, entitlement.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot, in fact, I think there should be a conversation with Anushli and how she brings up her children. It's just brilliant. I feel that at a certain point, what you said just now is because we have been brought up on a staple diet of black and white. There is no gray. It is right and wrong. Okay, not okay. Done, not done. And we are hopefully bringing up our kids with options, but at the same time, they need to take the, like Biswajit said, the responsibility of the option that they have taken on and be vulnerable to acknowledge, but at the same time, be strong enough to face the outcomes or consequences.
Yeah, I think it's also about the impact of the outcome on us, right? Because, for example, let's just go back to the same example of weight loss. We know that, we need to, we want to, but don't do anything about it. Unless you're in a situation where that is the only option you have. Unless you lose weight, you're not going to help. Maybe it can be a fatal situation as well. And that's when I think everything triggers and you are just in that mode of getting into your best health possible.
Very true. Very true. Thank you for bringing that up, Sushmita.
And also, Maya, with your first example that you had given, this manager joining and another company but didn't do well for first quarter. And there was, so that resonates with almost all leaders, I think.
Very true.
Now, so I had those instances where I have hired successful people from the competitors. Okay, and then wanted them to perform the same level of competence in my. And very soon we realized that he has performed under certain support system, conditions and support system. And all he wanted to do is bring the same set of people in our organization and our organization could be a different value
Absolutely.
system altogether.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if we continue to do this, okay, I can do it for one, try it for one, but if we continue to do this, this will not work because we have our own value system. Then I realized like taking responsibility. Now, if he is a performer, all that he needs to take is to understand how our value system works and perform. He will be performer in our system also, provided we uh, give him that kind of a support system for a limited period. And but he will also have to accept that he has not performed, and it is not because of his direct reports, it's because of something else.
Yeah, it's the
Okay, so
ecosystem actually that
it's an ecosystem. So I mean, when we try to hire those big performers from other company, that is where we fail. Like, you know, we cannot hire the entire support system for him.
In fact, just going for a play of words here, I have sometime back when I had a conversation with the CEO, I told him, "You're hiring people to be disruptive, and the old timers are looking at it as they are disrupting. There's a difference between disrupting and disruptive. So the whole idea is the newcomers are supposed to bring in their success stories and replicate it in the company, whereas the ecosystem gets scared, becomes defensive, and looks at these people coming in and destroying what they have built so carefully over the years, which allows them to be incompetent and yet not thrown out. And so, yeah, that dichotomy is definitely there, Biswajit. It is very, in fact, in that example that you shared, I would like to look at the last bullet point here, that men and women seem to choose transparency to build trust and ensure decisions. However, I have found that between men and women, women are willing to be transparent, whereas men expect others to be transparent. Not generalizing, but on an average. The women are readier, if there's such a word, to be transparent. Whereas men expect others to be transparent for the trust to be built. It's something which is like a wonderful space for maybe a discussion. But thank you for raising that observation, Biswajit. And people, if you can just give me 5 minutes more, I have, I'm sharing what I used in the coaching session to move through the defense mechanism. Those who need to drop out, feel free to drop out. You will have the recording definitely to go through. And those who are going to continue keeping me company, thank you so much. But yes, so here was a situation. Share an instance when something you did instinctively hampered transparency with the team.
Maya, can I make a, sorry to interrupt?
Yeah,
Can
sure,
it be
Rajesh.
possible to make it a little bigger?
Sponsor?
The
Which
model. Can we zoom in a little more into it?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Easier to read.
I'm going to cover the, is that better?
Yeah, this is better. Definitely better than last time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So share an instance when something you did instinctively hampered transparency with the team. And these were the questions that I asked to lead the coachee through a process that the person had in their mind, and to then understand what they were doing and why they were doing. So it is like, by the way, instant empathy with the first question, what is it that you have to cope with? Is an instant empathy question. Because a lot of times that emotion is something which requires or begs acknowledgement. So when the manager is not, or a leader is not being transparent with the team, what is it that they have to cope with, which stops them from being transparent? And what do they presume, assume, and conclude they would have to cope with if they were transparent? And here, what influences the person would most often be past experiences, or maybe not like entire team, but there may be 1 or 2 troublemakers in a team. A troublemakers being a relative term. Okay, so then comes the question of what do you do? What can you do? Now, this is a very delicate balance between what do you do and what can you do. If you could, and you had complete freedom of options, what else can you do? So that you create a space of compare and contrast. Then you bring in the value system or the beliefs. So when you do option A, what do you believe you are projecting as a manager? When you execute option B, how do you see yourself as a manager? So what do you believe in could also be framed as what do you see yourself as? How do you see yourself as? Who are you is a very tough question. I find a lot of us struggling to explain this question. And the coachee often doesn't get it. It's very highly nuanced. So I replace it with, how do you see your role in this situation? This is extremely true for, and I think a lot of us might have those examples where people are responsible for delegating tasks to a team of 20, but they are not responsible for their appraisals. In that situation, there's this very instinctive, I don't have control over the people, feeling that the lead or the manager gets. In that case, how do you see your role in this situation? What are the outcomes that you're working for? And then work backwards on top and ask, okay, are these questions in alignment with what you see your role as? What do you see your responsibility as? When we went through these questions, we reached a point where the coachee says, I was aware of the reorganization and the fact that I will lose some of my team members, but did not share it with the team because he had a feeling that some of them would become disgruntled. And he assumed and concluded that there would be a transparency challenge. So funny thing, he is not transparent because he thought that transparency would be affected between him and his team. So after going through the onion model, the question was, if you could relive the instance, how would you handle it? And the response was, I will be upfront and honest and update the team of the bad news. And now you bring in the accountability, competency 8. You bring in the accountability. You link it to the questions that you asked in onion model, especially what do you believe in and who are you? Those 2 questions help to anchor the accountability aspect. This is one model that I use with people. And the other one I use is, if you have heard of Byron Katie and her worksheet, a lot of you might be familiar with the 4 questions.
Yeah, it's the work, right?
Is it true? Yeah, the work. Is it true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? And how do you react? What happens when you believe that it is true? And who or what would you be without that thought? I will acknowledge that I am very selective in using this. I feel it works better when you have people with a reasonable proficiency in language, because it's a very nuanced question. So you need to have a proficiency in language, plus the person should be willing to be challenged. Of course, it is up to us as coaches to create that space. Nevertheless, I'm a little selective with this. The onion model gets me responses much more easily than this one. But yes, there are some senior people with around 18 to 22 years of experience. In that category, I have used the work, and it has proven to be useful. Having said that, I have found it easier to create an accountability with the onion model. With this, it becomes such a deep dive that people want to think about it. So then make sure that we create an accountability around the thinking part. what is, when do you think? What supports you to think? What derails the possibility of you thinking? So create an accountability, even if the person is saying, I'm going to think about it. And see if you can schedule another round of conversation with the person so that you can proceed from this, because this is a rather heavy duty space. And the last one, and my favorite, is that I was not told about the changes in the requirement. This led to confusion and delayed decision making. I feel the customer purposefully keeps information from me. I went round and round the countryside with this particular one, and the person was just not moving from their own narrative. And I was struggling a little bit. And there comes a time when in the conversation, you're like, what the blazes do I ask next? And that is when I used Meraki. And this is the card. I don't know if it is visible. This is a card that, so I gave the Meraki cards to the individual, and they happened to pick up this card. And just reading it out for those who cannot see it. The bird is an owl. The question is, what is your true desire? And what is the direction that you want to take? And if you do take that direction, what is the meaning you're creating for yourself in your role? And this really, really helped to break the status quo. The person, the beauty of Meraki cards is it appears to create a distraction. It is fantastic as a dissociation tool. So it's not about you as a client and me as a coach. It's about the card. And suddenly we are discussing a card which sufficiently dissociates us from the intensity of the situation. There was another one, which was, I was getting stressed about the approaching deadline. I felt there was no use talking to the team as they were freshers. And this caused objections to be raised when I reallocated tasks. So the manager was stressed, deadline was approaching, work was not finished. And instead of sitting and chatting with the freshers to understand what else, what more, the manager reallocated tasks and the freshers objected. And his conclusion was, the team does not trust me. I would like to share the fact that I used Meraki cards when the narrative was stuck and I was not able to break the narrative. And that is when I used the cards. And this one was just brilliant. I think that boy holding that leaf on his head, it just calms you down, for starters. Right. And in fact, when I asked the manager, like, what meaning does he see in this image? And he said he felt like he was a child. His umbrella was not telling the team. And then he said, at the end, he laughed and he said, but either ways, I got wet in the rain anyway. And so then the words here was, what are you believing about yourself? What are you believing about the team? How is that belief supporting you? Or is the belief derailing you? What is the kind of relationship? So the other word here is relationship. So what is the kind of relationship you would like to develop? And at the end of it, this question, what do you see if everything is resolved in this? I think one of the things that all of us as coaches, we need to ensure that we plug in is that it's not just a session agenda, but it is, if you get what you want in the session, how's life going to change for you? How are things going to become for you? What makes you want that change? That visualization of not post-session, not post-coaching, not post-realization, but when they actually implement and they actually change, then what happens in life? That has to be a space we could support our coaches to visualize and to whack it, as they say in NLP, to whack it so that visually, auditorily, and kinesthetic, they very strongly sense it. And they feel so good about it that they are internally, intrinsically inspired to make those changes and sustain those changes. All right. On that note, I would like to pause and hi. Oh, hi, Soumya. Lovely to see you. I would like to thank everybody for their participation and just share with me what comes up for you. How was the session for you?
It was awesome, Maya. There were many aspects of coaching and also human behavior, which was highlighted in the whole session. And somewhere how we ask questions also matters a lot when it comes to a coaching session. And how much the client can, I mean, it is not about the coach, it's all about the client. So how we can reframe the question so that he understands. Because some nuances need greater depth of understanding the whole conscious and unconscious thing. So most of them are, I feel, because of this running around, are operating in a rather surface level, not being judgmental. So for them, how we can be more creative in questioning.
True. And I think for that to really come through for us as coaches, Soumya, and I think something that I'm still learning is that be compassionate towards your own ability to question and feel free to reframe.
True, true.
Right? Feel free to pause and ask a follow-up, which would perhaps bring better clarity than the original question. Of course, be taking care to avoid stacking, but I think we need to be more compassionate and more aware of the fact that was our question getting a response or was a question triggering awareness? Because many times we ask questions to get a response.
Exactly. Yeah.
We need to ask a question and think about ki, bhaiya, ye awareness has been, created or not. And then the thing is, we look at response as awareness and don't ask a follow-up that strengthens the awareness. So what would you like to do? I would like to upfront talk to my team. Okay, fine. So how does that feel for you? What will support you in being transparent with your team? What will sabotage you in being transparent with your team? So we've already gone 2 steps ahead. Instead, if the person says that I would like to be transparent with my team, pause. Let the person add 3 more sentences after that. And then talk about, when you think about being transparent with your team, what's coming to your mind? How is it making you feel? Is that the feeling that you want? Achha, another thing, please make sure that the person feels. Because there are people who are not feeling type, or they have decided not to feel. So then there are people, okay, what do you hear? When you're being transparent, what do you hear from people around you? Does that support or does that sabotage? You could ask, what do you see? So look at the VAC, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic part, because I'm a feeling person. My natural question is, what do you feel? And I have found a lot of engineers, they don't feel, or they've taught themselves not to feel. And I'm in an IT industry. So I have taught myself to stop asking them what they feel. Right? Dil ne kya kaha doesn't work at all. So, but yes, thank you for bringing that up, Soumya.
Thank you.
Maya, very interesting session. Thank you so much for this. And defense mechanism is something, so sharing my vulnerability with this group. Yeah. So I used to be in that zone a few years back. So somebody also gave me a feedback, why are you getting defensive? Yeah. And that triggered a thought that probably, yes, I am defensive. And now I am consciously trying to avoid being defensive in many, many circumstances. Had a coaching session also on that a few years back, and pretty successful in that. So yeah, so it really triggers a lot of thoughts. So like you said, it's the very word defense mechanism means it is required. It just means it is required. It's not something for us to shy away from. But then, because that's also becomes a guard for our self-respect, which is required again. So I think, so again, there is a balance, right? How much of defensiveness and how much of, you know, showing your vulnerability that you want to get into. So yeah, awesome session. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of questions, coaching questions from you. Thank you so much for that. It's very powerful questions. Whenever I speak to Anushli, I learn a lot of questions like that.
Yes.
So
Oh, she is the role model for crisp questions. It is just brilliant the way in fact, Anushli, just now what Ramya said, and keeping in mind what we were discussing in the morning, I found a very challenging space, but a very a space of a lot of graciousness and gratefulness when I explored the possibility of men acknowledging, and not in a public space, but in a, say, a one-on-one with their decision makers. I'm really getting upset here. And I'm feeling very defensive. And then you give a 3-second silence. 99%, the other person says, that was not what I intended. And you've achieved it. Malaki, you just need to make that person aware of it. The person is more conscious and careful with their conversation. And then you will go back to, I would like to start this conversation once again. I think one of the most compassionate things, one of the best things that we can teach our coaches is to be compassionate with themselves. Fine, we have a defense mechanism. We've now become aware of it. Don't hesitate to acknowledge and reframe. And trust me, that aspect creates so much transparency. And that is what moves the person from like to respect, even from the decision maker's side. You know, they start moving into a space of whether I like you or not, I respect you for this. So that is something, Anushli, it's a combination of what Ramya said just now and what we were discussing about the survey this morning. Getting men to acknowledge, and by the way, I'll be honest, I don't always encourage women to do that because women are already jammed with the concept of thinking aloud. They think aloud. And many times they are not, the male gender looks at their thinking aloud as their actuality and then come to conclusions about it. It's like, I was thinking of sending you for this webinar. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And then the woman goes, yeah. And then you're like, are you not interested in the webinar? Oh, no. I am really interested. In fact, it's a golden opportunity. But I was just thinking, I think my child is having her 10th pre-boards. And then she's like, okay, I'll think about it and come to you by evening. By evening, the boss has already asked a guy and the guy is like, cool. Uska bacha doing 10th or 12th doesn't matter at all. He's going. So this has happened many times. Like I have heard this kind of a scenario in both the banking sector and in the IT industry. And so there, I will be very honest. I'm a little more cautious about guiding women clients towards acknowledging with any gender. But because it especially if it is thinking aloud, unless a woman has already created a space where she can get off herself being. So for example, if I tell my boss, I always start with, I'm thinking aloud. Or I say, I'm brainstorming here with you. And we'll take time to come to a decision after this. But the advantage I have is A, the boss is younger than me. B, I have gray hair. And C, I'm just a gunda. So it helps. So overall, it's easy for me to tell the guy, don't you dare come to a conclusion. Let me finish thinking aloud. So most women are not in that space that I am. So I am very cautious about it. So I'm already warning all of you. Like I try this out with the men folk, but not with the women folk.
You know, I just, I'm a Bollywood buff, so when you were reciting, I thought it was the Shah Rukh Khan dialogue. कि हर एक टीम में एक ही गुंडा हो सकता है.
Yes, that is a fact. In मेरे team में I am the gunda. Absolute. L&D में I am the gunda.
Chak De India.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay,
That was a great movie.
I like to share. I thought it was very interesting session. It was deep and it was also wide in the sense that there was examples that you gave us. There were coaching applications that you took us through. There was a model thrown in. So there was a lot to take back. And it was relatable at all levels because you were sharing examples and people were sharing examples. So you could really, it was not just conceptual and abstract. For me, what made me reflect is the thing that one hears a lot about coaching, about coaches wanting to be courageous. Coaches should have courage. And you know what comes against this courage of this whole feeling of defensiveness. And I was realizing in today's session that there's so much to learn about knowing when we become defensive ourselves as coaches. And that comes in the way of being courageous. So that was something that was playing in my mind, that how do I become more courageous as a coach? And how do I therefore look at those four models of defensiveness that I may get into unconsciously as a coach? And also therefore encourage our clients to become more courageous in the way they think. So I think that was really what I'm taking back for a deeper reflection.
I think just allowing ourselves to fail is what will actually make us courageous. I put it in another way. I said, have compassion for yourself. I mean, don't be so mean mean towards yourself. ठीक है, question पूछा, I didn't get you an answer, I didn't ask another question. It doesn't matter. World has not fallen down. Skies have not fallen. But I think another way of putting this compassion aspect is giving ourselves the space to fail. Knowing with confidence that we can rise after we fall. The confidence is not on asking the right question. The confidence is on coming back and asking another question, which is better than the first one. I think that is where the courage lies. We're all coming from this corporate space where we look at first time right.
Yeah.
AI only is not first time. You saw that AI robo which caught the bum of that reporter. So AI, I mean, like we are all human beings. So that's such an amusing thing, amusing and shocking both. The fact that the AI robo went rogue. But yes, thank you so much for highlighting that, Rajesh. Appreciate it.
And another philosophy in corporate is perception is reality. That
No, I don't mind perception being reality as long as people agree with me that there are different types of realities, and everyone has their own reality. Yeah. This giving people back is my forte. So when people say like people perceive and that perception is reality. But just make sure that you understand that there are different people and different realities. And my favorite example immediately is like, okay, suppose you and I watched an accident outside. What you will narrate is your reality. What I will narrate is my reality. What is the actuality is whatever happened in that.
correct.
So, yeah.
But I want to thank you for this insightful session, because this is one of the challenge I am dealing with is being defensive. So it really triggered a lot of thoughts in me and a lot of introspection as well. And there's another thing I'm walking away with. The question that Anjali has asked in the chat is, what is my relationship with the word responsibility? I think these two, and the thirdly is the power and crisp questioning, which I'm like really working hard, and this conversation has also brought that up, and that's also something that I'm taking away with to do a lot more
reflection and work.
You are another one. When you're really into it, you ask amazing questions and very crisp questions. So yeah, just double up your good stuff.
Thank you.
Great there. Thank you so much, Ramya and Rajesh. Appreciate it.
Will you be sharing this presentation, Maya?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. I'll give it to Akanksha. She can share it with all of you. Not a problem.
Thank
And
you.
I think the recording will also be there. So I think Akanksha will share because it's being recorded on the cloud. She will share it.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks, Maya. I think.
So much, Maya. Thanks, Anushri.
Thank
And
you.
thank
you.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Wonderful
Anushri.
session, Maya.
Always a pleasure to have you around.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, everybody.
You too.